All right, just like that, I'm live. I'm filming. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Something to Talk About, and this is my attempts to make a show that isn't 3 hours. So I wanted to find a topic that I can take down and just rock out one subject that I'm actually really passionate about. And for about a month, I've been writing my every episode review of The Wire, and I'm probably going to break those up to seasons. So be expecting season 1 soon because I have the script written for it. But while I'm rewatching season 2 for the 50th time, I know that it's considered the weaker season of the Wire, and I kind of want to explore what the theme of season 2 is and defend it and actually explain why I think it's one of the better seasons. Let me take a drink of my coffee and then we can talk about it. Before I go in, please like and subscribe. Do all that YouTube stuff. I'm still a really small, growing channel, and I have a lot of stuff that I'm hoping to cover, and I want you guys to see it. But here, let's just get into it. So a lot of people consider season 2 of The Wire as the worst season, and that might actually be true. Okay, I'm not going to say it's not the weaker of all of the seasons, but it's very far from bad. And being the worst season of The Wire is like being the worst taco, right? Not me, like the food taco, because it might not be the best taco you've ever had. It's still a freaking taco. It's still like blowing your mind taste buds wise. So just writing it off, it doesn't work. It's not right. I know that season 1 is focused on the towers and of West Baltimore, and that gave a lot of representation to the minority actors and the stories of the people in that life. But season 2 doesn't drop that life. It adds dock workers. I have pictures. Ready? See? There's some pictures of the dock workers. And what this season does is show us that it's not just a race thing. It's a systematic thing. It's not white or black. The system is set up to keep the poor and little man down. And I'm not saying that systematic racism isn't real, nor am I saying that white privilege isn't. What I'm saying is that this show creates parallels between the systems. That, along with the race problem in this country, there is a class problem. And I think that's what this show explores the most. Or this season. Sorry, that's what this season explores. That and I'm going to say this multiple times, but the theme of this season, the death of work. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, the idea of the death of work, when it comes from this season, is that the union is dying. And it's dying from anti-union legislation. That's like the hardest word for me to say today. And with the union being weak from this anti-union legislation, see, I keep messing it up. The company can replace like the workers with automation and robots. And honestly, this hits very close to home for me. I actually am a factory worker. I work in a factory, and I'm part of a union. And yeah, so it might be one reason why I look at this show from that point of view. Frank Sabatka, I got a picture of him too, is the union's treasure. And he is the only hope, or his only hope, is to get a lobbyist to get them a grain pier or to dredge the canal to get more ships in. So in order to get money for the lobbyists to keep the show or to keep the union afloat, he has to start smuggling for a group of criminals. And in order to pay the lobbyists, he is bringing in everything from girls to drugs for a group called the Greeks. Here they are. There's the Greeks. These guys supply half, at the point of the beginning of the season, half of Baltimore. This shows us that he's a victim of the system, just like the Project Boys in season 1. I even got some of these guys, my favorite characters. Bout, Wallace, Bout only had one job they could do to survive. And Frank is has to get extra money for his union to survive, and hence his family can. So both it's different as Frank Sabatka and the not corner boys, the Project Boys, is different as they are, right? They probably wouldn't hang out, but they're both forced to do one thing, and that is to leave this system that we all agreed to be in, right? Law-abiding citizens. They, both of them separately, had to leave this law-abiding life to survive, because being a law-abiding citizen wasn't cutting it anymore for their life. And I'll get into why, but that's a big parallel, is the Project Boys and the Union guys are dealing from the same problem. Where was I? So Frank has to get extra money to survive. So his family can. This also shows us that the drugs in the East Side, and later, like I said, all of Baltimore, also comes from white guys. Again, so the criminal element is not all black. So it showed us in season 1 that a lot of the criminal element's black, because we're just dealing with the West Towers. We're dealing with one drug organization, and that is Avon Barksdale with Stringer Bell, right? East Side isn't like that. So even though East Side has Prop Joe at the head, right, you have White Mike, and you have all the white corner boys like Frog, who low-key love him. I love Frog. So it's showing us that people in poverty, regardless of color, will turn to crime in order to survive. So I'm going back to that. So I'm about to answer the question, why do these people have to turn to crime, right? Why can't they just get a job? We'll get to this, okay? So this is only half of the crime at the docks. The other half is Nikki and, wait for it, Ziggy, there he is, can't get hours thanks to no ships. So they start stealing for the Greeks and start dealing drugs. This isn't to keep the union afloat, but to live. So Nikki can buy a house for his wife and his kid. But they can't even afford one in their own neighborhood, because other than just the cops, the anti-union politicians, and the company, you have developers like Andy Korchak, who low-key, along with Clay Davis, are, in my opinion, the two biggest villains of the entire series. So why is Andy Korchak so bad? So Andy Korchak is buying up the port and making it a upper class place. So the people who have lived there for generations, like the Polish immigrants who came over there, now, turned into Frank Sabatka and all the other characters at the docks, they can't even afford houses in their own neighborhood, right? So Nikki and his girlfriend, I'm saying wife, but I don't think they're married, are trying to buy his aunt's house, right? So something from their family. They can't afford it. And they can't afford it because Andy Korchak and the other developers know that there's no money in poor or middle-class houses, right? You have to stretch it, and say, oh, this isn't Locust Point anymore. This is the blah, blah, blah. This is the whatever. And it's part of they have to make the neighborhood sound great. They paint the house, and they say, look, it's an upper class house. And gentrification happens to the neighborhood, which is a 1-2 punch. No, that's the one punch, right? Is the developers buying up all the houses. And the 2 punch is these same developers that are paying the politicians to pass the anti-union legislation and to prevent the grain pier and the canal dredging are these same people, right? So they are the same politicians that are keeping their hands out to bleed union lobbyists dry and just not to help them, right? So we see Clay Davis just like keep his hand out, and his Frank's lobbyist, who I have a picture of, Brucey, there he is. Here he is. It's the worst picture ever. That's why I had to keep it. he keeps his hand out and he's getting paid and he's getting paid just so he can then side with Andy Krishak. So for no reason, he just bleeds this union dry. It's so dirty. And it's so bad. It all comes down to Clay Davis and the other corrupt politicians to get paid by the developers to help them get deals to shrink their neighborhoods and eliminate the factories or docks from the lower class for them to work in. So that is when the poor then turn out of the system. And when they turn out of the system, like smuggling for Frank Tabacco or dealing drugs like Wallace and Bout, they then get tossed in the jail by the same system, right? So here's the 1-2 punch. So the developers are making these poor neighborhoods richer, so harder to live in. And at the same time, they're making the people in that neighborhood who traditionally worked in certain areas, they're getting rid of those things. So they're getting rid of the factories and they're getting rid of the ports. So they can put up, they're like waterside shopping malls at the port, right? To even make it more expensive. But now the people that live there can't work. So they have to turn, or move or leave their houses or leave, their neighborhoods or just drop their identities completely, which was a big thing for Frank, was that his family are stevedores, and that this is when he's talking to Bruce. He's explaining that he grew up as stevedores as port workers and that his family are going to be port workers. It's very important to him. It's his life. It's as important as anything is to you of your livelihood and your identity as, as just citizens in America. And that's being taken from him. And that's being taken from just everyone in this situation who are getting the 1-2 punch of their jobs being closed and their neighborhoods being gentrified. So the death of work, like what the theme of this season isn't the right word for it. There is still work, but it's out of the legal system. And the union isn't dying, work isn't dying, it's being killed, thus allowing the company to screw the workers. So it's not the death of work, it's the murder of the little guys in the system. All right, I'm going to step back. I might be completely off on this, okay? I'm not trying to make a political video. It sure looks like I am. But what I'm simply doing is looking at what this season presents me, right? I'm just looking at the themes of this season. This is a show review. As much as it sounds like this is a political video, it isn't. I try not to be political on here. And it's just not what I am. This isn't a political channel. It's a channel that loves The Wire. And I'm looking at what the show presents me, and that's what the show presents me. The point I am trying to make about this season, so to defend this season, is this season says a lot, and it says something really important. And if season 1 showed you how the war on drugs is, a big part of systematic racism, and it is, season 2 brings that out, right? So it keeps the war on drugs. That stays prevalent throughout the entire series. But it shows you how there's also not just a war on poor minorities, but a war on just that lower class and that lower middle class, and the death of the middle class and the death of work. I think that is really, really important. I think it's sleeping on this season and saying that season just isn't good is ignoring one of the biggest themes in the entire show. So the show tells us that the politicians in the war on drugs creates a system that mistreats minorities. And this season, like I said, stretches it out to all lower class and all working class. It's just not a bad season. It's very far from a bad season. There you guys go. If you're wondering why I didn't edit this or anything, I want a nice mixture of my scripts and me doing improv. It's just kind of how I work, how I jive. and I don't like editing. So there you go. This is probably my shortest video I've ever done. That, and sorry, I should have said spoilers for season 2 at the beginning, but this is my analysis on the theme of death of work for season 2 of The Wire. So hopefully, if you've thought low on season 2, maybe this at least gives you a little bit more of insight into the overarching theme of the season. And yeah, there we go. I got nothing else. My name's Taco. Please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me for people to share this and it get out, because I don't know. It's actually a topic I really it hits, like I said earlier, it hits really close to home. And yeah, so thank you, and you guys, talk to you later.